listening to LOA Recon with the Good Vibe Coach Jeanette Ma, where we dissect the ins and outs and the art and science of conscious creation, all intended to amp up your manifesting game. Let's have some fun together. Okay, is it just me? Or is it the most incredible thing ever that whatever story we are willing to tell, it's coming true? Is that the most amazing thing? I mean, that's what our whole life hinges on, our ability to tell a story. And when I say tell a story, I'm talking about the way you narrate your life, the self-talk that you engage, the thoughts you're thinking, the way you tell others about what's up for you. Whatever you speak or think about yourself and your life, it's becoming so. It has to, because it's your conscious attention to it that creates it. I just think that's a cool system. That means that the only limits in our lives are defined by our storytelling skills, by our willingness to pick up a different story, and our ability to repeat it, even before it's true in our physical reality, by our imagination to make that new story really, really, really good. I just got goosebumps because universe has to yield to you whatever story you are telling. Come on, that's cool. I mean, you speak it, you think it into being. Whatever you say goes. Hats off to whoever designed this system. I think it's amazingly cool. And yes, I know, I'm talking about it like telling a story is really easy, and I know sometimes it isn't, because sometimes the first handful of times we tell something new, it can feel ridiculous. It can feel untrue. It can challenge our sense of worthiness. It can feel unbelievable. I know that. But guess what happens when we're willing to repeat something? It becomes familiar. It starts to feel normal. It seems like that's so, like that's how it is for us. And when we condition ourselves into the vibration of that story, universe has to match it. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's how it works. That's how we got our current reality. We just told the story of it so much that it formed around us in atoms that we can see and touch. So here we are with all these stories available to us, only limited by our imagination and our willingness to engage it long enough to make it so. And most folks out there are just telling the same stories over and over. And some of those are great stories. Some of them are. And some of them are not. So I'm asking you today to consider whether you could use a story makeover in one area of life or more. I bet all of us could use at least one story upgrade in at least one area. When I look around at my own stories, I just looked out the window. Oh my gosh, you guys, I live in paradise. This is my story. I live in paradise. I created the best gig for myself. I love it up here. It is such a great story to live out. I have goosebumps again. I love this story. I love this reality. And I told that story long before I got here. I've got another story. Oh, this is a really cool one. It's not the first time I've told it, so I've gotten traction with it before, but I picked it up again recently. It's the story about how amazing I look. I am such a fan of this story because it feels so good to love how you look. And I'm taking it to extremes, you guys. I'm taking extra time naked in front of the mirror to admire the situation. I'm wearing things on dates to show off the story. I am really reveling in the story of my body. I like that story. It's a fun one to tell. I've also got a pretty good money story going. Lots of people would love to tell my money story. P.S. Guess what? You can. You can totally tell my story or any other story you want to about your money. It is seriously so cool how it works. But I do have a couple of other stories that could use some edits. Maybe some of them some heavy edits. Like Molly's sleeping here next to me. I got a bad story. It's a stupid story. I know that sounds judgy, but you'll agree with me when I tell it. Okay, I got this dog, 15-year-old dog in the summer, and this is how my story goes. You know what? She's 15, and she's showing signs of being every bit of that 15. So I ratchet down my expectations about how much time we have together and how much she can enjoy the rest of her time because, she's getting up there. It's a terrible story, you guys, and I'm a story connoisseur. I could do so much better than that. I got a bad story about how I can't get a roof guy to call me back. I need to get someone on my roof before we get heavy rains again. That's a crappy story to run. I recognized it the other day, and I've started practicing a new one. Oh, I got another crappy story about how I don't have any close friends here in person locally. I hate that story. That one has to go back for a complete rewrite. I'll work on that one next. And that's the thing. All it takes for us to upgrade our life is to be willing to upgrade our stories, to be willing to tell them before they're true. That's what turns them into truth. And I know you know how to tell a different story. That's what conscious creation is. It's being able to speak it and see it and think it before it's so. If we're relying on the evidence out there before we're willing to tell it, that's a pretty big handicap in living what we prefer. We came here for dreams come true. Come on, we got to be willing to go for it with the stories that we tell. So I'm inviting you to pick a new story to tell in an area of life where you'd love to see an upgrade. Maybe don't start with the absolute most important, dire, big deal thing that's up for you right now. Or do if you're good at this stuff. But if you're new to this, it's often easier to start with something that doesn't feel so life or death. Like just play with an upgraded version of an easier story to tell. Use your imagination to speak it the way you'd like it to be. And then tell it to yourself now and again, maybe once a day, just for fun, just for kicks, just because you can. And you'll notice that the longer you tell that story, the more it starts to feel so, like this is how it is. And when you start feeling it that way, you are irresistible to universe. No matter how ridiculously big or unlikely or improbable your story sounded at first, when you start to feel it that way, when you start to believe it, when it starts to feel familiar, you will start seeing it. It's how it works. I know this because I've told some big stories. Like one of my favorites that some of you have employed yourself. I'm a brilliant coach in high demand. The first time I told that story, it felt like a big fat lie. It was a big fat lie. But you know, if you're willing to tell it, it has to become true. One of my other favorite stories that seemed pretty big and ridiculous, the more I sleep, the more weight I lose. Yep. Another favorite, I make money while I sleep. And then I upgraded it to, once that was happening, I was like, wait, I make big money while I sleep. I like that version even better. Oh, and one of my favorite stories I got from my dad. Love, love, love this story. I wrote it on my board before I could actually say it. I was just like reading it to myself before I could tell it. I let the story tell it to me to kind of get a foothold in it. But I love this story. I'm the best there is. That is a really cool one. You will bring different work to the world when you tell that story. I think everyone should have that story. And sometimes my big story was something as simple as everything's going to be okay. Like sometimes that felt really big and not easy to believe, but if we keep telling it, it has to be true. There was one time I was on the wrong end of a very heavy piece of furniture, on the wrong end. I was the only one moving. I was bound and determined to move this. It was like a 64-inch console. It was a heavy, heavy piece of wood furniture. And I was taking it downstairs, and I was on the bottom of it. I hope my mom is not listening to this. She would be so mad at me. Okay, so yeah, I tipped that thing down, and it started coming down on top of me in a way that was going to result in required medical attention. It wasn't good. And in the like, it was coming down, and I was going down with it. And my story was, uh-oh, this is bad. I could see the injuries that were going to happen, but right in the middle of it, split second, I changed that story to, you've got this. Okay, angels might have helped me with that, but somewhere I just came up with the story, you've got this. And guess what? I did. I had it. Oh, it was a nice save. Oh, that would have been really bad to go to the doctor for something that stupid. And here's the thing. Sometimes it's easier to improve our stories when we get a little help from someone else. The other day, I was telling a woe is me story about another failed relationship. And this one sucked because it was one that I really wanted to succeed at. Even though there were signs that maybe this isn't the guy you should really be doing this with, but I was ignoring those. And I was telling this woe is me routine about how it didn't work out to my best friend, Lisa Hayes, who's not only a best friend, but also one of the most powerful coaches I know. Actually, I would have to say the most powerful coach I know, and that's saying something because I know cool coaches. She's also, a lot of people don't know this about her, but she's also a crazy cool witch. And she has this ability, when you don't believe in something that needs to be believed in, she'll do it for you. She'll believe it for you, and she believes it so well that you can't help but get on board while she's holding that belief all by her own self until you're like, oh, okay, that's what it looks like. Okay, I can join you in this. And pretty soon you can hold it yourself. She's so cool that way. Okay, anyway, I was all about this relationship I screwed up, and she said, this actually, I'm getting a little emotional thinking about it. One of the best story edits anyone has ever given me, she said. I might be dramatic, but I don't think so, because I've run a bad story about me and relationships. Any of you who've been in my world for a while, you know this about me. I always say relationships. It's my final frontier. All right. So she said to me, it's not that you're not good at relationships. It's that you're not good at a relationship with him. Those two words, with him. You guys, the light dawned for me in that I'm not bad at this. I'm just bad at this with him. That was a huge relief. It's not that I can't get this right. It's just that I'm just not getting it right with him. And that might not be such a bad thing because he's probably not my guy for a wide variety of reasons. So it's all good. That little story shift, it made such a big difference for me, and thus for my vibration, and thus for my future relationships. 2 words. Huge, huge, huge difference. Sometimes it helps to get some help in telling your story differently. And look, LOA coaches are especially good at that. You can find us for hire at loacoaches.com. But there's another aspect to this whole storytelling routine I wanted to cover, and that's that it doesn't actually end in telling the story. Actually, it doesn't really even start there. It probably starts in the contrast that inspires us to something new, to want a new story, but it doesn't end in telling the new story is the point I wanted to make here, because telling the new story activates a new vibration, and new vibrations bring new ideas, new impulses, new intuitions, new inspirations. Those ideas and impulses, that's your inner being's way of calling you into the reality of your new story. You got to follow those. You can't keep doing your old story actions when your new story is calling you to new things. So follow those. And if you're wondering, how do you know where your new story is calling you? It's so simple. It's just to pay attention to whatever feels better and go there. It's what inspiration feels like, or joy, or relief. If, like me, recently, you've been beaten up on yourself for another failed relationship. So I'm just saying, be on the lookout for those new inspirations when you get a new and improved story rolling. Those ideas that you get, those inspirations to act, you're going to want to follow those. You know what? I have another resource that might help you in telling a new story. Over at the blog, we have the Vibration Activation Series. I say we because I got help in writing some of those. But they're just little scripts for new stories on a wide variety of subjects in life. So just click over to the blog, and there's a category for vibration activations, or you can search on it. But sometimes that can help you tell a new story that you might not know the words of yourself. For real, though, this is what our imagination is for. You don't need someone else to give you permission or to feed you the words. You don't need reality to agree with you before you tell it. You can tell any version of any story that you like. Isn't that cool? I suggest we start now. And if you would like a story editor to help you lift it higher than you know how to yourself, again, that's what coaches are good at, and other LOA savvy manifesting buddies. One way or another, I'd just love to see you use your powers for good. Thanks for listening, and happy manifesting.